Why is Jesus unique? We're going to talk about that today. Stay tuned. Well, our passage today, the Apostle Paul spells out some of the reasons that Jesus is unique. And what I want to do is I want to share one of these reasons. The Apostle Paul is writing to the church at Colossae. Colossae was situated in modern-day Turkey. And he writes to the church because there were certain people, certain teachers that had begun to infiltrate the church, and they were bringing about all kinds of new ideas and new teachings that were contrary to the gospel message. Now, it's hard to say exactly what kind of false teaching it was, but we are given hints as we read what Paul emphasizes in this letter. So it's become very clear that one major heresy that these false teachers were spreading surrounded the person of Jesus. And it makes sense that Paul wants to make clear who Jesus is. So he says in verse 15, he is the image of the invisible God. So here's the lesson. Jesus is unique because he's God. Now, those that are well acquainted with their Bibles will read that word image, and it should make you think back to creation. So men and women were created in the image of God, according to Genesis 1 and 2. Now, theologians, they've long debated what this image of God language in which humans were created might be. But at the very least, it means that we human beings reflect God in certain ways. In Genesis chapter 1, for example, we read that God is a talking God. So are we. We talk. We reflect Him in that way. We reflect Him also in our creativity. For example, God is the creator. Now, of course, we're different. We can't create from nothing like Him, but we can create things. I saw some great VBS, Vacation Bible School props at our church that people had made the last few years. But God has implanted in human beings a reflection of Him and our creativity. So to say that we are created in the image of God is to say that we reflect Him in ways, but we do not fully represent the image of God. You see, Paul shares with us in this passage that unlike us, Jesus is the image of the invisible God. Jesus reflects God in every way. So if the genuine inquirer were to ask the question, what is God like? Well, Paul would answer, He is like Jesus. In Christ, the invisible God has become visible. John in his gospel, he writes that no one has ever seen God. And Paul, of course, is in agreement with that. So he writes that he is the image of the God is invisible, but Jesus is the image of that invisible God. Now, when we say image, we're not to mean that Jesus is merely a representation of God. Now, when I was 11 years old, I was a big WWE fan, and I had a poster of The Rock on my wall. He was my hero. And I think about that picture, as accurate as a depiction the poster was, it was really just a representation of The Rock. Well, Jesus isn't the image of God the way the poster of The Rock was, right? There was no life on that wall, but Jesus is the living image of God. Not just a likeness, but the actual life of God. He is the tangible manifestation of God. As a human being, one of these most important questions that we can ever ask is, what is God like? You can study the laws of physics and you can come to the conclusion that there must be a first cause. Or you can look at creation and you can say, well, of course, there must be some kind of intelligent designer. You can look at your conscience, your innate awareness of right and wrong, and you can conclude that there must be a God. But these truths won't tell you what this God is like. So Paul urges us to see that Jesus is the revelation of what God is like. One of the disciples named Philip asked him the same question of Jesus. He said, what is God like? And what happens? He says in John 14:8, Philip said to him, Lord, show us the Father, and it is enough for us. Jesus said to him, have I been with you so long, and you still do not know me, Philip? Whoever has seen me has seen the Father. Whoever has seen me has seen the Father. You want to see the Father? Well, look at me. Later, Jesus says, I and the Father are one. Look also at verse 19 of Colossians and chapter 1. It says, For in him all the fullness of God was pleased to dwell. Think about that. All the fullness, as we might say 100% of everything God is, was encapsulated within Jesus. Jesus is God incarnate. In him all of the fullness of the Father is revealed. He is 100% human and 100% divine. So for all of you genuine faith inquirers out there wondering to yourself, what is God like? We'll look no further than the Galilean carpenter, Jesus Christ. Thank you so much. God bless you in the way.